Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Rebel Love podcast. Today my guest is Colleen Kochannek, a corporate refugee laid off at 48, turned two-time successful entrepreneur by 51. She's the founder of the Scrappy Frontier and entrepreneurship for women from the typewriter generation. Her commitment is to helping women over 50 start a business doing something they love without the overwhelm and frustration that can come with starting a business in today's tech world. 2.5 years ago, her husband passed away and she found herself having to recreate who she is once again. Welcome, Colleen. How are you?
Thank you. I am good, Talia. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm really excited to speak to you. Before we get into it, I'd love it if you could share a little bit about yourself and how you came to be where you are today, a little bit about your journey.
Sure. So as you mentioned, I was a corporate gal kind of forever and ever. I worked in the publishing industry for many decades, and the industry started going south, and I was caught in a layoff of like 10,000 people. And I had a job that I loved. I was fortunate. I was kind of traveling all over the world, and it was something I wanted to do. I knew that I wanted to do it earlier versus later because it's pretty exhausting. But so I got to do that, and then when the layoff came around, I was just kind of done with corporate. I was like, I've done this for 25 plus years or whatever, and it's been a good run, but I was ready to kind of do something on my own. And I naively thought, how hard could it be to start an online business? And then I jumped into that game, and it was really eye-opening and humbling. I realized very quickly that my corporate skills did not translate at all to the online business world, but I was really determined to make it work. And so I did. I took, online programs, and I learned what I needed to. And in that process, starting my first business, I saw a gap in the market that people really weren't serving kind of that over 50 crowd. And I would go in these programs and I'd be like, hey, is there anybody else like over 50 here? And women kind of came out of the woodwork. It was crazy. And so they were just kind of sitting in the shadows, quietly learning, but not asking questions. And I also realized that a lot of these programs out there had, they had a lot of assumed knowledge. Like they just assumed I knew what some of these terms were, and I didn't. So, but anyhow, so that's what inspired my second business. But that's kind of my journey to entrepreneurship. I thought it was going to be a lot easier than it was, and it wasn't. But I figured it out, and it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be complicated at all. And as you mentioned, my husband of 29 years passed away 2.5 years ago. So that threw, of course, a huge wrench into life in general, and to my business, of course. That was a very brutal process. That he was very sick for about 8 months, and it was just, it was pretty awful, actually. And then since he's passed away, it's just a process. It is a whole process going forward. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you've really had to recreate yourself twice with your work, but then much more intensely with your husband's loss and your personal life. So So how did you navigate that? Because I guess you didn't kind of see that coming.
Well, you don't see it coming. The layoff, actually, I saw it coming. I was part of a British team at the time, but I was American, but we had to go by British rules. And so they tell you month over month, we're going to lay you off. We're going to lay you off. And in the end, you're like, just lay me off for Pete's sake. It's been 9 months you've been threatening. So I kind of had that I saw that one coming. But it is strange when you go from corporate to not, like you don't realize how much your identity is wrapped up in that job, and I'm so-and-so, and like I'm a marketing director. It's just kind of strange, and suddenly you're not. So that was one recreation. And then when my husband passed away, it's how do you navigate it? You don't have a choice, unfortunately. You just don't have a choice. And the first year, and I've heard this from so many other widows, like you think you're doing fine. You think you're fine. And, I kind of bounced back, and I was traveling again, and I was doing all these things. only come to realize that, I was just kind of in this kind of suspended state of, I was going to say animation, but it's not, but it's like you're in grief, but it's so profound you don't realize it. So
Right.
you're just kind of moving forward. And I was telling somebody the other day, it wasn't until about maybe like 5 or 6 months ago that the real finality of it, like I like realized, or like it sunk in, as silly as that sounds, because he'd been gone for 2 years, but it's really hard to even like comprehend the finality of it, because your whole life, like your whole identity is wrapped up, and it's more like the everyday things. Like, I always try, like, I can't even explain it to people, like how you have breakfast, what you buy at the grocery store, like all these like just everyday things changes, in an instant. And it's very strange to figure out like who you are without this person. I mean, I was with him more than half my life. So it's very strange. And so I'm not there yet. I'm still working on it, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, it actually, it doesn't make, it doesn't sound, you said it sounded strange. It doesn't sound strange at all. I think, like you said, you were kind of thrust into it. Nobody chooses this. So it's like, it's this initial shock, and then the layers of the shock unfolding kind of without you, like you said, without you kind of even realizing. You're thinking, oh, I'm okay, but not at all,
Yeah. Yeah. In hindsight, you're like, oh my gosh, no, you were a wreck, but like you don't realize it at the time. But everything now is strange. So like I sold our home that we had lived in, and I moved to a new town that we had traveled to a lot. And I have friends here, and it's just all these strange things, like, oh my gosh, like I get to pick out anything in my house that I want. I don't have his opinion, which at the time when I had it, I didn't want it, of course, for decorating. But, now it's like, oh my gosh, I can just do anything. And there's kind of this realization that I could be anybody, really. I could reinvent as anybody. So that's a bit overwhelming, but it's also kind of, good to think about as well.
If anything, I mean, I know this is a really kind of difficult question, but if anything, has there been something that's helped, if that's possible?
No, they're really time really. I think your mind protects you for, while it needs to, and then once you're ready to kind of start moving forward, you do. But it's definitely, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. So really, I think what's really helped is just making a decision that I'm going to move forward, if anything. And I don't know how that's going to happen, but, I've made the decision, so I'll figure it out as I go, right, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And has the kind of choosing to change in terms of like selling the house and moving away, has the change of scenery and the change of everyday life in a different, what's the word, in a different area and scenario been helpful?
It had, I mean, of course, we're in COVID now. So, the timing couldn't have been worse, like moving to a new place and then you're on lockdown. But yeah, it definitely has, because it's, I'm building new memories in a new place that are just mine, and they're not attached to anything. It was strange when I sold my house and I moved. There were so many things that I brought with me that I'm like, I can't live without this. Like, but once I got here and I was unpacking, I'm like, why the hell did I bring this? Like, it was attached to that place and that environment. And once I got here, I'm like, no, didn't need it. So, I mean, there were very few things. I mean, of course, there were things that I didn't want to leave without, but not as many things. So it's definitely been helpful. Like, you having to go out and find just everyday stuff. Like, where's the grocery store? I need a vet for my dogs. So you're kind of building a new life, like a new story, so to speak. And it is kind of nice that people don't know your story also. Yeah,
you get to reinvent yourself. You get to really reinvent yourself and be somebody new. I always like that when I travel. I get to be somebody that and nobody knows like what I was like before. So it's so great.
Exactly.
And they treat you that way. That's the best part, isn't it? They treat you that way.
Yeah. Because that is hard. As soon as you say, oh, my husband passed away, I'm a widow. It's like, oh, I'm so, and it's like, it changes the whole tone. So it's kind of nice to not have that all the time.
Yeah. So do you not tell people so that you can kind of reinvent?
Yeah, it's not that I don't tell people. It's always kind of an awkward thing because I'll talk about my husband, but I always talk about him in the past tense. And I know it's like an American culture thing. Like people don't want to say he died. Like those words are like taboo somehow. So like he passed, he transitioned. I'm like, what, like transitioned, like gender? What? I don't understand this. Like it's so strange. So it's not like I don't say it, but I talk about him in the past tense, but then people don't realize and they'll say something. I'm like, oh no, he died 2.5 years ago. And they're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. So it's like, I don't bring it up, but I also don't hide it. But it's definitely, it makes people feel very awkward, which I understand because they don't know what to say. Yes.
When my father died, I had a lot of people, not knowing what to say. And it is that awkward moment, is it? Because it's like, there's really nothing you can say and you don't have to say anything. It's really okay to have that kind of space and you to just be in the space. But a lot of people feel really uncomfortable with that.
Yeah. I mean, I had a good friend, and, when it happened, she's like, Jesus, that just sucks. And I'm like, that was the best response I got from anybody. Like, people were trained to say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry for your loss. But it's not that it's empty words, just we don't know what else to say. Like there is nothing else to say. So when she was like, that totally sucks, I'm like, yep, that totally sucks.
It really does. Yeah.
So that was, yeah.
It's interesting. Somebody someone I know just treated me at school, just treated me exactly like normal and gave me shit like normal. And I was like, oh, that's good. There's kind of a bit of normalcy here, because everyone looks at you like you're wounded, and you are wounded, of course, but it's like, it
is strange. It is strange. And, relationships change, even though, like I still had my same friends and all. The dynamic changes for sure, even subconsciously. So when I moved, of course, I still have these friends, but getting just to a new environment is nice as well. Just kind of a fresh start. Nobody knows the story. And it's just, it's been good. That has definitely helped me for sure.
Okay, so after your husband died, obviously there was a lot of change and a lot of readjusting there. How did your business play a part in that? Has that been helpful for you, and in what ways, if so?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So I had started my business helping women start their businesses just prior to my husband getting sick. And I had launched a membership program, and it was, it's just a small group, really kind of a really tight knit group. And they stuck with me. Like I disappeared for, months and months and months, and they still stuck with me when I came back. But it's been really great. Like the last 6 months, like getting to come back into the business, almost like it's brand new again, kind of with fresh eyes, but it's there. And it's like, I have to get up in the morning because I have obligations, I have things to do, and I'm launching new products now. So it's exciting. So there's a purpose and, all those things. I think we're all learning now, like with COVID, like if you're locked down, like with nothing to do, like you can lose your mind, like really lose your mind. So having a purpose and responsibilities and deadlines and, normal stress feels very good. And it's been very good for me, for sure.
And being able to do it from home anyway. So even if COVID wasn't going on, I feel like that when COVID hit, everyone was like, oh, are you still working? And I was like, I was already working online. So
exactly, like not much change. In fact, when I moved here, I had gotten, I still have a co-working space. So I do get out of the house.
Me too.
Because that's also good too. Like you got to get out of the house.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of co-working spaces, exactly the same. Even just the chair and the standing desk is like,
just being around other people. Like I have 2 dogs, and it's like, I could become like that lady with 17 dogs. Like, so I have to get out of the house and keep things good.
Yeah. So more specifically, what do you do? So you said you help women over 50, over 45.
We give or take a few years. Yeah. I always say like over 50, but it's definitely, I get a lot of younger people wanting to come into, my space too, but it's really, I help women. We're digital immigrants. And so technology came to us during our lives. Like, younger people, you're born like teething on an iPad, you're called digital natives. We're digital immigrants. And we, studies show, and I worked in technology for years, that we do approach technology very differently. So of course, having an online business, being tech-based, it's a huge hurdle for my audience. It doesn't have to be. I mean, these are skills that are learnable, but in their mind, it's a huge hurdle. So I help them, really kind of navigate that online space and how you take your years of experience and turn it into an online business. And, from what I've seen, we're the best equipped to have an online business because as soon as you become an entrepreneur, that is the biggest self-development activity any human being can ever undertake. You get to know yourself really well when you become an entrepreneur. And so, and so I think with all, the life experience and street smarts and decades of just life, we're very equipped for this entrepreneurial world. So that's what I help them do. I just kind of help them navigate the systems and tech part and, just the marketing part and figure out how to monetize it.
Right. And you said you started before your husband got sick. And so how has the business changed from when it started to now? I know there's been a lot of growth in there and a lot of intense change. So how would you say it's changed?
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, when I started it, like any new entrepreneur, I wanted everybody's welcome, everybody come to my world, everybody, because I really didn't have a clear vision of what my business did or who I served and all those kinds of things. And so having that space in between to just really figure out, who I can really best help and all those types of things. When I've come back now, I've come back with such clarity on what I do, who I can help. And so I'm much better at helping them now. So I think that space was it was great to give me clarity, because now when I'm in my business, I'm growing fast, which is great, but it's because I have such clarity around who I can help, who I can best help.
Yeah, right. You've refined your process.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how are your how's your tribe going? How are the results going?
It's going good. I mean, everything is going good. I'm getting ready to launch a new product, a low ticket offer on Black Friday to really build my list, which it's doing that. And then I'm going to have a new kind of a core, like a foundational product coming in early 2021. Because I kind of did things backwards. I started a membership program first because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. I was very naive. So I started that. And so now I'm working backwards, but this foundational program will really just kind of be like the A to Z, like from idea to your first income and like everything that comes in between. And then I'm going to have the membership program off the back end of that for people who want, access and coaching and, to have their questions answered live and all of that kind of thing. But I really keep it, I'm calling it like the easy business school, because I keep it simple. Like there's like the bare bones that you need to start your business. It's so easy to get overwhelmed by, all the shiny objects and all of that. Because as soon as you get in the online space, you're pixeled, and then you get all these ads for all these programs and you think you have to be doing everything. So I've just kind of like stripped it back to like just the essentials, just the essentials. So so hopefully that's going to be a good one. I haven't launched it yet, but that's the goal. Yeah.
Awesome. And just for those listeners that don't know, a pixel is basically like, it's like a little marker when you come to a website, when you accept the cookies, it's kind of like that. What they do is they put a little marker on you so they know who you are and they can follow you around with ads. That's what pixeling is.
Yeah. Pixeling is when you go to Google and you say, I'm looking for a new comforter for my bed. And suddenly you go on Facebook and you have a million ads for bedding and linens. That's exactly what it is.
That's right. Or if you look at like one ad about teeth whitening, you get like a million different ads about different types of teeth whitening.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So I know you've had kind of like it's been, like you said, you've kind of been thrust into this new way of reinvention. And is there anything that you can kind of, any words of advice or anything that kind of has helped you navigate that because like you said, you were thrust into it without, just in the best way possible to move you forward. Like, is there anything that's helped that you can like share with us?
I think what's really helped is, people say like, oh my gosh, you're 53. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm only 53.
Right.
Like, we're so much younger than our parents were at our same age or our grandparents were. I mean, we're living in this very amazing time where, at 50 or 60, you can easily have another like 30 or 40 years ahead of you. Like you could have like another half of your life ahead of you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think kind of reframing it that way for me is like, oh my gosh. So I have time for like a whole other life, like a whole new life. It's not like, society, like they like to put these like, stereotypes on you that, oh, you work, you retire at 65, you sit in your rocking chair and like wait to die or play bingo or golf. And it's just not that way anymore. Like we're not that way anymore. We have this incredible opportunity. And I think when I looked at it that way, it's like, oh my gosh, I do have so much time ahead to create something amazing. Because in the very beginning, when my husband died, I thought, oh my God, I was with him 29 years. Like, I'll never have that again. Like I could never have that again because it was so long. But then I'm like, well, wait a minute, actually, I do have that much longer ahead of me,
right.
And I'm not looking for a relationship. I mean, if it happens, it happens, but it's not something like I'm desperately seeking or anything.
Right.
I have my own business and everything, but it's like this realization that I do have that much time to build something, really incredible. And I'm not just kind of sitting around like waiting for the end kind of thing, that there is that space to do that, I think has been very helpful to me. And I think a lot of people could, benefit from thinking that way. Cause in the beginning, I was in a lot of like widow groups on Facebook and all. Oh, depressing. Oh, really depressing. Like some people that are just like, this is the end. It's the end. This is all, it was just like, so like profoundly lonely and depressing. And I'm like, well, what are you doing to try to like get out there? And I know it's not that easy. I mean, it's an awful thing, but I'm like, you have to make things happen. And the great thing is like in our day and age, like even being an entrepreneur, like I have met so many amazing people like you all over the world that are friends and support. And, it's incredible what we have today. It's just incredible.
It is incredible. And I just wanted to mention that actually we met because we were in a mastermind together. And I, and you made a post recently and I was just like, wow, the solidarity of the group and, everyone. And it's really true. Like the post was about missing your husband. And it was just like, it was so lovely that first of all, that you felt safe to share. I was like, wow, this is really amazing that you feel safe to share and that everyone in that group is very loving. And that's just, they are like this person, the leader of the mastermind is just an incredible, incredible woman. And I'm going to name her Julie Stoyan. She's an absolutely amazing woman.
Incredible.
And and she's created this beautiful community where people like are entrepreneurs and they have heart. And it's really kind of welcoming and exciting to be part of. So,
it's crazy. I mean, we've talked about, so yeah, you're talking about on Sunday, I had like a total meltdown and it comes with, the loss. And it was like this just out of the blue, somebody on Facebook had messaged me and, oh, your husband, I knew him, worked, da, da, da. And it was just like, all of a sudden, like you're reliving this, like, oh, I didn't know he died. It's like, it just relive it. And I posted in our mastermind group and it is amazing the support. And then behind the scenes, like the private messages I got from people that I've even barely known in this mastermind. But I'm like, what an incredible space we are and place we are if you allow it. Like if you allow yourself to be part of these groups and these online groups, you can find your people, especially now in COVID. I mean, that's crazy. But even without COVID, I have made so many incredible like friends and found supporters in these like online masterminds. And when we used to be able to have like live events. But even in the online space, it's just incredible. I mean, there is such solidarity, like you said. It's just incredible. You can really find your real people. It's not like high school, like where there's just a limited number of a few people that are your people.
Right.
It's like the whole world, you can find them. It's amazing. It's really amazing.
It is. I think you made a really good point there. You said if you allow yourself to go out and find them. I think that's a really big piece of it, because I literally have friends that I've never met. In fact, my team for my blog, we're in 5 different countries all over the world. And I have only met one of my team members in real life. And some of them have been working with me for over 1.5 years now. So
cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. And we have such a close relationship, but I've never met them in person. And it's, it is possible. And I mean, obviously it would be great if we could all be together physically, but now with COVID, I'm not sure how frequently that's going to be able to happen. But yeah, like I just think that piece of allowing yourself to get out there, and I know that it is difficult after death to allow.
Although I do think with COVID, like people are being forced to get comfortable online, and so hopefully that'll help open things up for people as well. Yeah.
Did you get any kind of like counseling assistance or therapy when your partner?
I didn't. I mean, there were a lot of offers, because my husband had been sick for a long time, and in the very end, he was meant to go into hospice, but he didn't make it there, which was a blessing. But they've reached out a lot, and like I said, I reached out to a lot of. I was in widow groups, and they weren't for me. Like I have to put myself in a place of like light and forward, if that makes sense, or I could easily drown in like, because I'm very empathetic, so I take on people's emotions a lot. So it's like I feel bad not wanting to join and support, but I also know I can't do it. And I've recently been in a program. I joined a program with I think she's a psychologist, Christina Rasmussen, and she has this life reentry program, which I joined, and I haven't been to any of the sessions. I watched the replays, but I can't go live yet. So I'll probably take it again. But that's been like the most, I think, helpful in terms of like therapy, or because I'm definitely like, I'm pro therapy for sure.
Me too.
100%. But it's like, there's a time and a place. Like, I just can't get, like, I have a hard time. Like if I'm in this group of like people who are really profoundly sad and whatnot, like I take it on. So that's just my own personality. So I have to kind of inch my way into that, so to speak. So, but I have done, so much like journaling and writing, and that's kind of been my therapy. For sure.
That is very healing, very healing.
Yeah. But for many people, those groups are, really helpful. Like they really, they really benefit from those groups.
Yeah, I don't think there's any kind of one roadmap, is there? It's just like you've got to find what works for you, and like you said, knowing yourself and knowing that, okay, I'm really empathetic, and this is kind of a bit much for me at this time.
Yeah. You have to do what's right for you, and there's no rule book. I mean, everybody in these widow groups, there's all these stories of, when can I start dating? No, you can't start dating. Like I'm like, there's no rules. There are no rules. There are no rules to this at all. I'm not dating. Like I don't envision myself dating, but I'm not opposed to it. But there's just like people just talk about, their families like imposing these rules, and mom can't date again. And I'm like, there's no rule. There's no rule book, and there's no guidebook either. So.
Before we wrap up, is there any last, I think you've kind of covered most of it, but is there any last piece of advice you'd give to anyone who's in a similar situation as you?
I think, my advice is, it's not over, and, you can, I won't say heal from it, because I think that kind of loss is lifelong. You learn to live with it like alongside you. But there is like a whole world out there waiting for you if you're willing to go out and, see what's possible. Because, especially at, if you're 50, 60, even 70, there's so many years ahead of you and so much to do in this world today that, Yeah, it's not what we had. And, and I think in the beginning, widows always like, you spend a year or two trying to recreate what you had, and then you realize you can't recreate it. You just can't do it. But there's just so much out there, and so much to do, and so much to explore, and you just have to be willing to try. I mean, I'm just trying all kinds of things now. Like, that's my mission. I'm learning how to reupholster a chair. I took a gun class a couple weeks ago, and like, I've never been like a gun person, but I'm like, I've never shot a gun. I'm going to shoot a gun. Like,
right.
I need one. No, I don't need to own one, but I'm just trying. I'm like, I don't even know what I want or who I am. So I'm just going to go try a bunch of stuff and kind of see what works.
The process of reinvention.
It is. And I think I think it's ongoing. It's ongoing. It never ends. And it's not even about profound loss, which propels you into it. But I think it's just a constant, it's part of life.
Mm-hmm. Well, Colleen, thank you so much for being here. It has been a pleasure to speak to you about this. I know it's kind of been a heavy topic and process, and I really, really appreciate you showing up and sharing with us today. If anyone wants to kind of get in touch with you, how can they do that?
They can reach me at Colleen@scrappyfrontier.com, or they can go to my website at scrappyfrontier.com as well. Mm-hmm. And that's where I am.
All right, perfect. And I will leave all of the notes and links that we've mentioned in this episode. You can go to rebellove.com/EP15. So that is rebellove.com/EP15 for episode 15. Colleen, thank you again.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Rebel Love podcast, the podcast about love, sex, relationships, and money. If you like this episode, please support us by subscribing and leaving a review on your favorite podcast platform. And find all the details of this episode and more at rebellove.com/podcast.